Patty. What's up?
What's happening, man?
Not much, buddy. You ready for the Super Bowl?
Hell yeah. I was just about to say that.
Oh, are you really? Words out of your mouth. Listen, by the time this comes out, it will be over. So let's get your predictions now.
Predictions. Every time I've bet against 49ers this year, they always win. So I'm going 49ers. Going against my gut.
You know, strangely enough, I have the same feeling. I hate to agree with you, but I think so. But man, on the other hand, Kansas City in that offense, that's going to be tough. I don't know.
I want the Chiefs to win.
Do you?
Yeah. I like Andy Reid. I feel like he's due. Mahomes is awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think both teams, like I don't have any feeling. Honestly, there's not a team that I like one better than the other. So it doesn't matter. It sounds really corny. It's like, I just want to see a good game. You know. Did you see that picture, by the way, of Rob Lowe at one of the playoff games? And he had a hat on, the actor Rob Lowe, and the hat just said NFL on it.
No.
And then the caption underneath it, I think it was like an Instagram post or something. The caption said, "I'm just hoping for a good game." It's like you can't even pick a team. You show up with an NFL branded hat on.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Pretty funny. So I kind of feel like him right now. I don't really care. I just want to see a great game. And yeah, man, I'm excited that it's different people. So
That's pumped. Good, man. It'll be a lot better than last year, I hope. I mean, it has to be. You probably don't even remember last year. It was awful.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
Okay, we got a fun topic today, my man. I put together a couple questions to ask you. But today we're going to talk about pricing for personal training small group. And I wanted to start out with, should you do per session pricing or EFT, and kind of if you could explain what each of those are and how you should do it.
Yeah, we've done both. So when we first opened in 92, we were personal training and we sold sessions. And when I say sessions, meaning like you sell a package is the common word. So I want to buy a package of sessions, right? And we started out with I think we had a 5-pack, a 10-pack, and the biggest that we had was a 20-pack. And I mean, I'm really aging myself, which is fine. We didn't have any software back then that could track all those things. So we did it with Monopoly money. We literally just cut money and put it into envelopes. And when people would buy a 10-pack, it was color coded, and we would give them the pack of 10, and it was like gold. We literally kept them in a locked safe in the office and had them pre-cut. It's like, don't lose these. And then they would turn those in to the coaches, and the coaches would turn those in for payroll. So that's how you sold packs, and they were all color coded. So it was a system. It was just archaic, you know. But the per session was easy to sell, right? You could sell a 10-pack. But as you can imagine, I know there's a lot of folks out there doing personal training that still sell it this way. I would not suggest it. And the main reason is, there's two reasons. The main reason, though, is cash flow for your business, right? It's really hard to track cash flow because you have accrued revenue, which is when you're actually servicing it, right? And then you have the revenue when you're actually collecting the money. And it's really hard from an accounting standpoint, if you're not putting an expiration date on those sessions, to know when the accrued revenue is happening. So what happens is, you sell a 10-pack and it's to a 1-day-a-week person, and they take a vacation, and it takes 12 weeks to use all the sessions, something like that. And what that does to your cash flow then is, say in the summer, as an example. Oh, let me back up. So in 1998, when we had a banner year, we were in 3,000 square feet, and we did over $1 million in training. That's $83,000 a month. It didn't look like an $83,000 a month linear pay, right? It looked like, January is $125,000, and then summers would be much slower because again, we were only collecting money in short spurts. So the cash flow is much easier to manage when you're charging people by the month. We didn't come to this decision based on our business. Everything we've ever done has been based on in the trenches, like beat us over the head with it until we go, oh, right. That's what you want. Same case here. So we would have people that would buy 5, 10, and then our regular clients would say, well, I'm doing 20 sessions. And somebody would say, well, can I buy 50 sessions? And we'd had people saying, you're always dinging me for money. How about I buy 100 sessions? Like, wow, that's a lot of sessions, right? But why would we not do it?
Sure.
Well, then the question was, well, if I buy 100, can I finance that? Do I have to pay for it all at once? And they're still looking for a discount. And we would say, well, as long as your money stays ahead of your sessions, then that's fine. We'll let you finance it. So they might make 4 payments throughout the year, and they would have to have money or credit on account. Then you look at that and you're like, well, that looks a lot like monthly payments.
Kind of organically did that, didn't you?
Exactly. So we just sort of backed into this and said, well, why don't we just charge people by the month based on the frequency that they want to come in?
Yeah.
And so that's how we landed on EFT. I will also say, from a customer experience standpoint, and this isn't why we did it, this is what we discovered later, is that when you have one discussion about money right at the start when
Yep.
there's sort of a perceived exchange of services for money.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It goes away forever. Any of you guys that have been in the industry for a while or you've ever sold packages of sessions, you all know the pain point of going back to that client and saying, hey, your 10 pack is up. Can you bring me a check? Or you're, and by the way, it's not even a 10 pack because remember when you late canceled on me last week at 6 a.m., I used that one. So I know you've only used 9, but you don't have another one left. You're actually out now. And so it's like you're forcing your customer to make a buying decision every month or every 2 weeks sometimes or every couple of months. Whereas in an EFT model, you simply go to the customer, you have one transactional conversation, then you move the relationship immediately to relational, right?
Yep.
And personal, and that's where it should stay forever.
Mm-hmm.
And for lack of better terms, the money just sort of goes away and you never have to think about it again. That's the best relational way to set up personal training as well. And there's never that awkwardness of asking for that sale over and over because as you know, Matt, you never know what kind of day you're catching people on. Like
Sure.
maybe it's a day where they, literally maybe they went out and had Chinese food or something a couple of days ago and they were retaining a bunch of water and they happened to step on the scale. And in their mind, they're having this emotional response saying, this isn't working for me. I'm not losing any weight. And you're like, by the way, they wander into the gym later and you're like, hey, you're out of your 10 sessions. You need to sign up again. They're like,
great,
oh.
I quit.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So I don't owe you anything. I'm out because this isn't working. Right. I'm not saying that it's not a burden for us to talk them through that. And we get all that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's the facts of the emotional response to having to make a buying decision every month or something like that. Right.
Well, I think that alone has sold me on EFTGs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because that's a pain point for any
It
coach
is.
that's ever had to go back and ask for extra sessions.
Absolutely.
Pain in the butt.
I mean, I will say it also, just, pricing side, EFT monthly, getting your sessions, it kind of almost forces the clients to come in and use them as well. Like you kind of said, they're not dragging them out, things like that. So it's just better.
Yep. Great point. And I had forgotten about that. Another huge plus, and that's what we saw when we switched to EFT was our frequency of the usage went up. A lot of people ask, is it use it or lose it? And that's more of a customer service choice or business decision. We do use it or lose it. And the reason that we do that, honestly, is not from the simplicity of the accounting, which is nice, but it's from the additional accountability that comes along with, we sat down and made an agreement between me as your coach, you as my client. I told you if you're in here 2 days a week, I could help you. If you're not in here 2 days a week, I'm not going to be able to help you. And so by allowing them to use sessions whenever they'd like and not keep the frequency where they need to be is actually skating your responsibilities a bit as a coach.
Yep.
And so the EFT forces you into a structure that holds them accountable to a certain frequency. That's the right thing to do by them as a coach.
Yep. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Next one. How do you price your personal training or small group in your market?
Let's just speak to small group because that was tricky. So for those of you guys that maybe haven't heard prior podcasts, when we were 10 years as a one-on-one training business. And if you've done this for a while, you understand how this works. It started out as 1 hour or 60-minute personal training sessions. And our market at the time, I think, was around $60. And then what we found is, we'd like to charge more, but $60 was pretty much the threshold at the time. And what we found was, if we could move people to half an hour, maybe tweak the programming a little bit for things to happen quicker, we could then charge $40 for half an hour, which the customer would pay less. We could actually get 90% of the work done because the 60-minute session had sort of a slower pace to it because we knew it had a lot of filler time. And then if you multiply 40 times 2, now we're making $80 an hour, right? And so I think a lot of people went to 30-minute one-on-one training. And clients loved it too because there's less time working out, right? If we're honest. And so when we looked at moving to that 30-minute construct, when we then started to see that people would come in and work with friends, partner training, things like that, it was like, wow, this is where it's at, right? And a lot of them would want to partner up in 30 minutes, but sometimes we felt like, if we had 1 or 2, maybe 3 people, we'd take it to an hour just because we were moving around and we had more moving parts, right? And it took a little bit longer to get everyone serviced. And so if you're in a market where you're moving from one-on-one, which happens, you're moving from one-on-one into small group training, use your market rate for 30-minute one-on-one training. So in other words, when we went from 30-minute one-on-one training. We did like 3,000 sessions that year. It was a really good year. And we moved into the small group setting. We kept our prices the same. And the selling point was that you're getting more time for your money.
Yep.
And we meant that. There were simply things that we could not accomplish in a 30-minute session. Anybody that's listening to this that's ever coached 30-minute one-on-one training knows the frenetic pace. I mean, you are down to the minute, right? There's no using the restroom. There's no having a snack between sessions. It is one right after the other. And there's also things that you maybe couldn't accomplish if the client showed up 10 minutes late. There's no warm up. It's like, oh, we're just gonna have to dive right in because I've got another client coming in 20 minutes now. Whereas when you move them into the small group setting, now we have sort of this 45 to 60 minute window that we can work within. And it allowed us to accomplish things and do things with clients that we couldn't in 30 minutes.
Right.
So the selling point was, hey, we're going to be able to do all the things that we haven't been able to do, right, for the same price. Now, if you're working in a 1 hour one-on-one setting, the selling point is, because you're going to cut price, right? It's going to be essentially moving to your market rate for 30-minute one-on-one. Now you're going to be paying less and getting the similar service. That's a selling point, right? Pay less, get the same. You just have to share your time with other people. Or pay the same, get more time and exercise. Same thing, sharing your time with other people. So always price it. And people make the mistake of underpricing their small group training. And again, keep in mind, you guys, small group training is a term that in our industry can sometimes be confused for what we would call team, which is 20 people getting sweaty. We're talking about small group. We're talking like 4 to 6 people with one coach and the brand promise of personal training. So using our app and the tools that we have to actually apply programs to people in a personal training setting, not necessarily a metabolic circuit or anything like that. So that's the way you price it. You look at your market price for 30-minute one-on-one. If you're transitioning out of that, great. If you're opening a new business, that's where you start. And that seems to be the pricing structure that's worked for every gym that we've worked for. That's what we did here. And that will allow you to still realize really good revenue, right? While, you're a valuable proposition to your market.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of people underpricing based on all the boot camp models and things around?
I do. I think boot camp and team training, we talked about this ad nauseum in other podcasts. It's a bit of it's a bit commoditized at this point, just meaning there's so many similar knockoff services out there. It looks a little bit like group exercise sometimes. It's a big cardio class. Price for that. I mean, when you have a gluttony of anything, oversupply, what happens to, price? It goes down, right? So the price is coming down for that. When you look at small group personal training, and it's key, don't undervalue it, right? Don't look at it as a smaller version of team. Because I've seen people come in and say, okay, I'm going to sell 8 times at $150 or something like that. I'm like, that's not 30-minute one-on-one rates. So think about it this way. If you could train 2 clients that are 30-minute one-on-one clients in 60 minutes, it makes sense, right? Let's say like in our market, $40 to $50 in Atlanta in our market would be a fair price for 30-minute one-on-one training. I think that's what most folks that are doing that are charging. So if I could train 2 people in an hour, great. Now, if I could train 4 people, right, in that same hour, then I can literally double my income. And all of those people, if they were forced to train at that rate in a 30-minute construct, are going to get more time with me. And as long as my systems are tight, my programming works, and I can make it individualized for each person, they're going to have as good, if not a better experience in that time period. So it's a simple answer. There's a lot that goes to it depending on where the stage of your business is and where you're starting. But great question about, do people undervalue it? And often, yes. So again, back to the original answer, use the 30-minute market rate for your market for your small group training, and limit your groups at max to 6 people. 4 to 6 in that magic ratio, whatever you feel like you can do.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. So in terms of pricing and your pricing structure, how many options should you have?
The least that you can possibly have. I think this is something that I always laugh about. Entrepreneurs are crazy. And so we like to sit in the office and create all this, drop downs and price menus and different, it's like too many things, right? And that's in every aspect of the business. And one of our main core values is KISS. So keep it simple, right? In doing that also has to do with your pricing options. I think the book, Matt, and you can remind me, an example of this was Switch with Dan and Chip Heath. Great book about just behavioral science, which you and I both thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah.
And so in that book, they did a couple of studies to support that less choices are better. And I think the one I can remember, and again, I might be butchering this, but it's essentially, it's at a grocery store. And there's one table set up and it has 24 choices for jams or jellies at the table. And there's another table set up and that table only has 6 choices for jams. And they measure traffic, like who stops by the table, who does what. Well, not surprisingly, the table with 24 different options for jams had more foot traffic than the table that had only 6 options. But the table that only had 6 options sold twice as much jam as the table that had 24 options.
Right.
So people will tell you that they want a lot of choices, but the facts are if you give them too many choices, they won't buy anything at all. They get decision fatigue, they get self-doubt. It's too many options. So the least amount of options that you can put on your menu, the better off that you're going to be. So I would highly encourage everyone listening to think through that lens when you're putting together suites of different services. And we've been guilty of this in the past where if you buy this, you're going to get a nutrition consult, this, and that. You're going to get to do team training in addition to this personal training. And then you do one of these and you get one-on-one and there's like 47 options, right?
You pull out another sheet that has a bunch of add-ons.
Yeah, here's all your upsells and your add-ons. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but you just have to make sure you put them together through the lens of really simple.
Right.
So one of the things that's been great about switching to our new franchise model is we're only doing one vertical of service, which is small group personal training. And so it allows us to come to market with 3 membership options: good, better, best, right? Yep. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times a week. Again, session-based mentality, which is what personal training should be, using EFT, using the theory of use it or lose it, which we just talked about. But it's just very simple. And so we know that we need them 2 to 3 times a week. So you're going to land somewhere between your 2 times and your 3 times a week. Couple of people doing that 1 time a week, the value's not as good there. But keep it really simple. The more choices you have, the less stuff people are going to buy.
So we do EFT, obviously. Should you show like price per session on this pricing sheet, or should it be just the lump sum for the month? Or both?
I think both. So there are some arguments that you can do weekly pricing. Some people like that because it shows a lesser amount, right? I think in the US, most people are used to paying for things by the month. Obviously, if you charge by the week, because there's 4.3 weeks on average in a month, I think your annual, if you kept a client for a year, you would actually earn more income on them if they paid by the week and stayed for a year. It's a little bit extra than there would be if you just charge by the month. We keep it simple and charge by the month because we're targeting an affluent clientele, and our monthly rates are not that expensive. Now, at the sales process, definitely use unit pricing. Every retailer does that. So why not borrow from what big retail does? They've certainly put more research into it than we do. So when we sit down with someone and we say, listen, our average rate for personal training in this market, and we're speaking to one-on-one, this is again me speaking to you as a customer, is $80 an hour. Here, it can be as little as $25 an hour. You just have to be willing to share your time with a coach. And people go, oh, I mean, I don't care how much money you have, where you come from. Some cases, even more so, if you have a lot of money, you didn't get there because you're not savvy with money.
Sure.
So sometimes the more money people have, the harder they negotiate, right? Because they're smart and they think they're going to get a deal, and they fancy themselves to be deal makers and good business folks.
Yep. Everybody likes a deal.
They do. And so when you sit down with someone to sell, I love the unit pricing. And we have people ask, so if we run, say, a Facebook ad, and if you look at any of our ads, you'll see people asking, we might run a hook half off your first month. But then people ask, what's the price? What's the price? And everybody gets panicked. And we always answer like, listen, $25 to $30 per personal training session, which is less than half of the market rate. And they're like, okay. Now, listen, there are people that we know can't afford that price point. That's a fact. I mean, personal training is not for everyone. It's for a certain income threshold. Sure. We get that. But for the people that are in that, it looks like a pretty good value, especially if they've done some personal training in another market and paid $60, $70 an hour, $40, $50 for half an hour, something like that.
Okay, cool. All right. What about monthly versus annual memberships?
That is a hot topic. Well, here's what I'll say. Forever and a day, we preached the value of an annual membership. At some point, there was some studies done, and I really wish I could recall. I'm sure if somebody listens to this and you've got the research and where it came from, shout out, let us know what that is. But at some point, someone did research and said, listen, of all the types of memberships you can sell, 12 months has the most value, meaning that people will finish their agreement. Now, mind you, this came from the regular health club market, not necessarily studios only, right? And so there were people at one point selling 18-month memberships, 24-month memberships, and obviously the more time that you committed yourself to, the lesser your monthly rate was. So it looked more attractive. But what they found is that the people on the longer memberships would default much more often than people on the shorter memberships, which I think intuitively makes sense. So 12 months became the gold standard. Well, when things changed, and not just in fitness, so think about life overall. Like how do you sign up for Netflix? How do you sign up for Amazon?
Month to month.
Everything's month to month. And so when the explosion of the studio market started, which is really 2012 or so, we were still selling annual memberships. But I would tell you that the sales acumen that's needed to sit down with someone and sell them $300 or $400 a month membership for an annual commitment is pretty high. You sat in that seat.
Much harder sell, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, was that your experience as well?
Absolutely. I mean, people like they had to think about it for a long time, use every bit of that trial. A lot of those folks, get the year, but.
Well, and to your point, you mentioned the word trial. So not only is it harder to sell an annual membership at a higher rate, no one else in your market is doing that, right? So again, how are we all doing business these days, not only in fitness, but with every other thing that we interact with? No commitments. You hear it like, sign up for a new security alarm company, that's a monitoring company. Don't sign an annual agreement. Everything's month to month. Quit whenever you want.
There's just so many bad experiences out there, right? I mean, how many times? Hell, I was guilty. I was in college, ended up with a 12-month membership to a Gold's Gym in a place I didn't even live anymore. My parents were like, what the hell are you doing?
Exactly. And so we've all been burned by it. We've all been warned off of it. Everyone's scared of it. And no one else is doing business that way, even outside of fitness. So for some reason, we were still stuck with this one study that said like, hey, this 12 months. Then you start to see brands pop up that aren't doing that anymore. And what it does is it just makes them more approachable, makes them friendlier. You can wear the white hat at the point of sale. And the $1 million question is, if you didn't do annual memberships, would your attrition rate or churn rate be higher than it would if you did? And that was what we were afraid of, as we should be. We would claim, listen, we're going to make this 12-month agreement. We're going to work really hard. And so to make sure that they're happy and we keep them engaged. But at the end of the day, we start looking at the way everyone else is doing business. And we basically end up with these 3 buckets of people is what we discussed. We've got the people on one end who are regular clients who've been coming in for 10 years and they don't know what kind of agreement they're on. They don't care. They've been paying you forever and they just want to keep going, right? On the other hand, you've got someone who might balk and be really unhappy in your business. And if you're successful, you don't have a lot of this, but every now and then you have someone's like, I just don't want to do this, right? And if we're honest, everyone in here that's in the service, personal training type of business or studio business where high touch and high customer service is the brand promise, you're going to let them out of that. You don't want someone who hates you in your business, and you don't want the ill will and the negative feedback in the community, because you know how it is. If something negative happens, you tell many more people than you do if something great happens in your life. You don't want that. So you just let them out. So you don't want them here anyway. So that's one group. Then you have your other group. And the group down the middle was, well, maybe these are low usage or people that aren't coming to the gym. Maybe they're having a couple months where they haven't been to the gym. And you're thinking, well, if those people were not on an annual agreement, would they cancel? And so we hedged our bets. And it's like, I don't think that's why. Because as you start reaching out to them, you find out they've just been busy or they fell off the wagon, and they appreciate you calling, but it's not really about the membership, right?
Not at all.
And so we changed our model. We went to month-to-month memberships as opposed to annual. And it's been several years now, and I'm really pleased to say that we have not seen an increase in our attrition rate, which is the biggest question. So it stayed the same at 3% a month or 36% a year, which was about what we saw on annual memberships as well. So that's been really encouraging. And additionally, it allows us to wear the white hat at the point of sale. So you don't have to run as aggressive as a hook on the front end. Yep. So if you can remember, Matt, when you were sitting in the director's seat, which is what we called our salesperson, we were running a 30-day personal training experience for $89. Well, that means you have 30 days sales cycle to stay on someone for them to try it, to convince them to sign up for a year. And you needed that 30 days to get them to say yes in some cases to a year. Yeah. Whereas when you're month to month, it takes all that away. And it takes, as you scale your business, and certainly for us going into franchising and looking at, we were opening different businesses or coaching people in licensing, Not everyone has a rock star salesperson like yourself or like Joe that used to work here who could basically sell anything to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that person, it's much easier to sell someone on a month-to-month membership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then like earlier in our conversation, then you take the money, it disappears, and you get down to the business of what everyone can do well, which you should be able to do if you're in this business, which is service people, help them get into better shape, feel better,
right,
create a great environment, great third place for them.
Right. We should never actually been worried about it because we are such a high service, business. I mean, people don't leave.
Well, it's all about breaking your belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of that evolving over time as a business or as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, is about busting your own belief cycles, right? Because you get stuck in these loops of like, well, we have to do 12 months. And you really find yourself sadly thinking, well, this is the way everyone does it, or this is the way we've always done it. But I would just challenge anyone here to sit down and review those notions at times and challenge yourself to say, is this really the right thing that we should be doing?
It's probably very similar feelings you had when you went for per session to EFT, right? I mean, you're very worried, like, we get a lot of money in this month, and it's not going to be that way. You're worried like, oh God, half the people could cancel next month,
Exactly, because now I'm going to ask them to sign up for a commitment. But there's ways to go about that in scripts that we've built for all of these things to help people out. But I mean, listen, if you still like annual memberships, I would present month-to-month pricing first, because I can just tell you that it's friendlier. Yep. It's nicer as a brand. It's less salesy, so to speak. And nothing wrong with sales, but I'm just saying you don't want to be seen as salesy when you're in the service business, right? Because you're trying to keep the relationship personal, not transactional.
Right.
So you wear the white hat at the point of sale and then just get on with the more important part, which is servicing people and keeping them happy.
Well, it's great stuff, man. You have anything else to add?
I think that is it. So I know it's a simple answer, you guys. There's 1,000,001 little processes and things around this that we can help with. So shout out if you need help with this stuff. We're happy to weigh in and help you if we can. Certainly if you're in the franchise, all this stuff is baked in. But yeah, that's about all I have on pricing. We've got some other things we can talk about in follow-up podcasts around these different functions. Mm-hmm. But high-level pricing, especially if you're moving into small group and if you've been listening to that or following along or semi-private, whatever those terms are, this is the best way to go about it. Best practices.
Thanks so much.
All right, buddy. Thanks.